to Reverend Donna Scarper, to Administrator Alan Davidson, to all other distinguished and fellow honorees, members of the UCC Media Justice Ministry, greetings and good morning. I'm Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, and I proudly represent the wonderful people of Central and Southwest Brooklyn. And I want to thank Reverend Donna Scarper for her kind introduction. And thank you to each of you in attendance this morning for the privilege of speaking with you at this historic First Congregational United Church of Christ. I am profoundly grateful to the First Congregational United Church of Christ family, the United Church of Christ Media Justice Ministry, and its board of directors and everyone in attendance for welcoming me this morning. Know that I stand before you in awe of the immense legacy of advocacy, compassion, and action that have defined this congregation for decades. It is my absolute honor to join you for this 42nd annual Everett C. Parker Ethics in Telecommunications Lecture and Awards Breakfast. And let me say that I'm so very proud to stand before you, the leaders, change makers, and visionaries who are brick by brick, mind by mind, home by home, and heart to heart, pushing this nation forward and shedding the shortcomings of its past. I consider myself blessed to receive this historic award at this transformative venue, both of which bear the name of a man who devoted his life to ensuring that communities of color were equally represented in the broadcast space and free from the bias and discrimination that have too long plagued our families. Recall that in 2012, as he reflected upon his incredible body of work and all that he achieved across his remarkable life, Dr. Parker said, quote, "I want them to remember that I was a guy who fought like the devil for the rights of minorities," end quote. I believe Dr. Parker would be quite pleased to know that he was quite prescient in that wish. But I believe he would also remind us that the work is not yet finished. Throughout my career in Congress, I've fought to ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion in media spaces are not merely part of the plan, but at its very core. Because truly, the diversity of our nation demands us to encourage this kind of representation that can meet the needs of all of our communities. America's true potential has always lain within its historically underrepresented communities, that folks in urban and rural areas who are too often left out and left behind. And to support and empower those who have been historically marginalized, we must first narrow the gaps that have helped contribute to their exclusion. We know that above all, two great barriers before the digital divide are access and affordability. With the necessary infrastructure simply not existing in many rural, remote, and oftentimes urban communities, I and my like-minded colleagues are in Congress took action to put them on the right path forward. We passed the bipartisan infrastructure law with its historic investment in broadband deployment through the BEAD program. Through our work, countless Americans in every corner of this nation, as was indicated by Administrator Davidson, who were for too long underserved and overlooked, were finally given the tools they need to thrive in our modern day civil society. But as I've said, the second part of bridging the digital divide is just as important. That is increasing affordability, because too many households that want broadband simply cannot consistently afford it. During the last several years, the Affordable Connectivity Program was essential in getting tens of millions of households online by helping them afford it and making sure that low-cost broadband was available and represented in broadcast spaces and free from the bias and discrimination. Excuse me. that were available to folks who might want it, but are struggling to pay the bills and get online and stay online. The ACP was the biggest broadband affordability effort in our nation's history, with more than 23 million households relied on it, and it has been extremely successful. Truly, the ACP represented one of our best tools to close the digital divide. But unfortunately, it, as it often does, unfortunately, petty politics, callous indifference stood in the way of moral progress. The Affordable Connectivity Program's funding was left to expire, stripping communities from Brooklyn to Washington to rural and middle America of the access to affordable, reliable internet that they've come to rely on. So now it's time for Congress to act. To folks who might want it, but are struggling to pay the bills and get online and stay online, the ACP was one of the biggest broadband affordability efforts in our nation's history. And we are in the midst of making sure that our colleagues are held accountable. We cannot give up on this progress that we've made closing the digital divide. Our communities, futures, and ability to thrive in the digital age depends on our actions today. So please, let's get to work. And let us all be remembered as the people who saw the digital divide and who, like the great Reverend Dr. Parker, fought like devils to fix it. Or some would say even saints to fix it. Let me close by just saying how humbled I am by this honoring this morning. This doesn't say or indicate to me in any way that I've made it, but that I've got much more work to do. And I know that together we will succeed in our essential mission to make sure that every community across this nation knows that the work that we have put in have left a legacy, not only for this generation, but future generations to come. So as they say in Brooklyn, New York, one love. Stay safe, stay strong, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.